In a minute, I want to tell you about a young woman with a broken arm and something her doctor found 4 days later that he couldn't explain. But first, here's the honest question underneath that story. What would your life actually look like tomorrow morning if you started taking God seriously? Not believe in Him seriously. Expect Him to move through you seriously. There's a new handbook from Destiny Image built entirely around that question and around stories exactly like the one I'm about to tell you. It's called Seriously Supernatural. Here's that story. A young woman, nobody famous, nothing unusual about her circumstances, shows up with her arm in a cast. A few ordinary believers gather around and pray. Nothing dramatic, no stage, no spotlight, just people asking God to do something. Days later, she's back for a follow-up x-ray and the doctor stops. The bone has already healed, faster than it should have. No reset, no recast, 4 days. And here's what matters most about that story. The people who prayed weren't famous ministers. They weren't anyone you'd recognize. That, it turns out, is the whole point of the book. Because if that story is true, and Turner tells dozens like it, then something has to be true underneath it. The miraculous was never supposed to be a lightning strike, reserved for a gifted few standing on a platform somewhere. It was supposed to be more like a craft, something ordinary people pick up, get trained in, and grow in on purpose. So, who's teaching this? The woman writing the handbook isn't a platform name either. Meghan Turner is a missionary and revivalist who spent years serving in Scotland with her husband Nate, doing exactly what happened in that hospital story, training everyday people to pray for the sick and actually expect God to answer. And when she sat down to write the book, she didn't start with the miracles. She started somewhere you might not expect, with who you are. Here's the block Turner keeps running into. You cannot walk in something you secretly believe doesn't belong to you. If some part of you thinks you're disqualified, too ordinary, too broken, too new to this, you'll never step out, no matter how many stories like that one you hear. So before anything else, the book settles the account. In Christ, she writes, you're a new creation. The old record is gone. That's the ground everything else stands on. Once that's settled, the next door opens. Authority. Jesus told his followers they'd been given authority to walk over the works of the enemy and to come out unharmed. Turner's point is almost embarrassingly practical. Authority you don't know you have is authority you'll never use. Most of this book, honestly, is just teaching you to pick up keys that were already handed to you. And this is the verse the entire handbook is built on top of. Jesus said the one who believes in him will do the works he did, and greater works. Sit with that for a second. Greater works was never a compliment paid to Jesus. It was an assignment handed to you. But you can't carry an assignment like that on faith you keep in reserve, only reaching for it when it feels safe. Turner gives faith its own chapter. She calls it limitless faith, and it comes down to this. Risk the awkward moment. Pray the bold prayer. Step out before you feel ready. Because the supernatural in her stories almost never shows up in the safety of the boat. It shows up the second a foot goes over the side. From there, the book walks through 3 doors it groups together as power. The first is the prophetic. Turner's version of it is less fortune-telling and more encouragement with precision, saying the specific, timely thing God is highlighting to build somebody up. Paul told the Corinthian church to earnestly desire it, specifically because it strengthens everyone around you. The second door is healing, and notice where Turner's stories actually happen. Not mostly behind a pulpit, but in shops, in restaurants, on the street. A word of knowledge here, a quiet prayer there, just a willingness to risk being kind out loud, because signs, Jesus said, follow the ones who believe, not the ones who impress. The third door is deliverance, freedom for people bound by something they couldn't break on their own. Turner is careful here. Her framing is compassion, not spectacle. Jesus said he came to set the captives free, and she treats that as ordinary kingdom work, carried out gently, quietly, and in love, never as a show. Now, before we go any further, let me say something the book itself is careful to say. Praying for healing and freedom is real, but it stands alongside your doctors, your counselors, and the care God also provides through them. It never replaces that care. If you're walking through something right now, please keep your professionals in the room and keep the focus exactly where Turner keeps it, on Jesus, not on whoever is praying. The gift always points back to the giver. Here's what actually sets this handbook apart from every other book like it on the shelf. It doesn't end with one more inspiring story and leave you there. It ends with a plan, 6 weeks, laid out week by week, with scriptures, teaching points, and things to actually go and do, because a gift you never exercise just goes quiet. Fittingly, the last chapter is titled simply Practice, Practice, Practice. So by the last page, here's what you're actually holding: a full path. Settle your identity, step into your authority, stretch your faith, learn to move in the prophetic, in healing, and in freedom. And then, 6 weeks to start practicing, beginning this week. At Nori Media Group, we love books that don't just stir you up and leave you there. They hand you something to actually do on Monday morning. Seriously, Supernatural is a handbook, not a highlight reel. It assumes God still moves and that He wants to move through ordinary people. People honestly like the ones in that hospital story. People like you. So here's the question the book keeps circling back to, the same one we started with. What would change if you actually took Him seriously? Seriously Supernatural by Meghan Turner, with forewords by James Aladiran and Larry Sparks from Destiny Image. You can reserve your copy now through Faith and Flame. The link is below. If you've been waiting for permission to step out past the safety of the boat, consider this it.